So we're going to hear from Sarath from the University of Technology in Sydney. He'll be talking about smart resilient cities from a robotic perspective. So an interesting follow-up from today's session. So if you can share your screen, Sarath, and unmute yourself and get underway.
Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Hi everyone, my name is Sarath Kodagoda. I'm acting director at the UTS Robotics Institute. I have over 20 years experience in robotics. So this is maybe a bit more different to what you have heard about so far, but in some ways it is the same. So I'm going to give a bit of a flavor of what robotics can do in this space. So the smart resilient cities robotics perspective. So as all of you know, and this has been communicated a few times, cities are very complex systems. So you have moving parts, thousands, millions of moving parts, and you have power supplies, you have communications infrastructure, so many complicated things interrelated into one sort of area, which is a very complex system. So because of that complexity, it is there are many vulnerabilities in many cases. So there are weak points which can easily fail and disrupt the whole city. So this can happen even without a disaster, or this can happen when the disaster strikes. The cities can be really can go into a standstill, or when the things are not happening right, it can have a spiral effect, but going from one to the other and escalating. So Catherine and others has mentioned about IoTs and all the sensing work that you can put it in order to understand what is going on. That's fantastic work, and it's great to hear about that. So with the new trends in all the developments in technologies and computing, communication, this is possible now. And my joke is going to be more on the robotics side. So IoT has been covered very nicely by the previous speakers. So robotics, how robotics can help and how robotics can come together with IoT and other technologies to solve some of these problems. So I'm going to talk, we are doing a lot of robotics in different areas that you can imagine. But here in this case, I just restrict myself to just to give some talk about very few projects very briefly, so that you can get some idea what we are talking about. I have many videos, I have many the media coverage out there, but I will send that link later, because this is a very short talk. I'll just try to stick to this slide. So there we have developed, our colleagues in the institute has developed the robots which can do the grid blasting in the harbor bridge, because whenever or every time you go to really manage this infrastructure. Infrastructure is a crucial thing. The cities are getting older, and because of that, you need some mechanism of the understanding what the status of that. So this harbor bridge project is about, or it is about the looking at the bridges and trying to find the condition of them, and also grid blast and remove the pain. So that has been even commercialized at this moment. The robotics systems has been developed and then brought in the harbor bridges, which can even crawl inside the arches and map and understand what is in there. So that then the towers are complex structures. And again, colleagues in the institute developed the robots which can basically climb on these the towers while inspecting what is happening, what is the status of those towers. So that work is also another robotics application. Then when you look at the underground infrastructure, you know that there's a web of water pipes and web of sewer pipes underneath. So from above ground, you won't be able to see what is going on there, but I'm pretty sure that you might have seen, at least in media, that sometimes, you know, these water pipes burst because water pipes are normally pressurized, and you will see fountains in middle of the city. So that can you know, basically stall the city. So we have developed robotics devices which can be deployed inside the pipes, and again, colleagues of in the institute, so with in collaboration with Sydney Water, we have deployed this, developed this robotics one, which is at the actually bottom of this slide. That sort of a robot which can go inside the pipes and expand and then take measurements about the thickness of the metal left, so that then that information can be used to estimate how much, or do you have to do fit for purpose intervene. So sometimes it might need to take it off completely and put a new pipe, or sometimes you can use a different method of renewals. So that is that part has been developed, and also now it is operationalized. What I meant by operationalization is that this robot is now part of Sydney Water's day-to-day activities. So it has been used by by Sydney Water in order to assess their pipes. So the other part is about my work, which is about building robots in a not so nice environment for sewers. As you can imagine, sewers can come in different shapes, sizes. Most of the sewers are concrete, and there is an issue of concrete corrosion. Because of the things that we flush in, there are chemical reactions happening there, and that can affect the concrete structures. The problem with that is, over the time, the concrete structures can fail. You don't want to see sewers are failing in any cities. That is going to be horrible, and it's not going to be great. So the one in the middle, the robotic devices, I hope you can see my cursor, is about sending this through 650 millimeter diameter manholes, put it into the sewer, and then it can expand into different sizes of sewers, so that it can get measurements along the way about how much corroded concrete and how much good concrete left in the structure. So that is another aspect of basically understanding what these structures are doing now, and also basically doing the fit for purpose and timely renewals, which are required for resilient cities, because when the infrastructure is in place, there is a very low chance, or they have a better chance of facing those disasters. So that's where the robotics can come into the picture. Given the time limit, I will stop here, and thank you very much for giving this opportunity. I will share some of the video links, so that you can have a good look at it leisurely. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sarath. Yes, the video links would be great to share with everybody. So the next speaker we're going to hear from is Rekha from Tonkin and Taylor. Rekha is presenting on 2 ideas today: the pulse of cities, as well as planning for the future. She asked to share the screen.
Yeah, can you please do that? Yeah.
Yes, wonderful. Right. Fantastic. Marion's onto it. Excellent.
Awesome. Probably I'll just use that time. And thank you so much for having me. And it was great hearing, from speakers who've spoken about IoT, robotics, and things that are really making difference to our societies. And I wanted to, probably take a approach towards how do we really pull these things together and actually work from top-down approach, to make a difference to how we work. Do you want me to try to share it? Can you all see my screen?
No, we can't see it. Yeah, we got it now.
Cool. Awesome. All right. I'll just go straight. I'll probably, what I really want to cover today is around, in this lightning, round, is around digital transformation for cities, and related to the industrial revolution continuum. And, we already in the smart cities space, industry 4.0, where we are using IoT, AI, and other, technologies to make a difference, big data, which is making us more and more intelligent and building those smart cities. We've got to move into 5.0 as human first cities, but why I really wanted to, and 6.0, which is more around homogeneous cities. It's something that I believe is what is going to be the future. I believe that probably, we should envisage future, but try to build the gaps right now, following a future back strategy. And that's where I think we should be focusing on. The first idea is really around the present, which is pulse. So right now, as we see around in the cities, whether it's Auckland or Melbourne or Sydney or, Wellington or Christchurch, everyone's is kind of, moving towards creating a smart city portal, getting IoT sensors, building AI machine learning models, and bringing all that data together. We have been working with a lot of, cities and helping them build that. But what I really want to set up, present, like probably a present here and throw it on the floor, is around network of these smart cities. So more around how can we really improve the interoperability between the cities and make sure that we've got a disaster recovery stations for each other, so that we can have better response recovery. We can have more predictability around it and have more human-centered response to what we do. It would all start by reverse engineering and creating what that network of smart cities would really look like, and how do we really take it backwards, rather than just working towards in our cities. How can we really combine together? Catherine, Grace, and Min, and everyone is coming through around the lack of data sharing. How can we really have crowdsource of data and make sure that we've got to actually building towards it with an end in the mind? It's always easy to just build back on the building blocks now, which are missing ones. And we all know probably there are so many cases which are already seeing a lot of things that are happening across. We were talking about AI agents, the dynamic agents that Min talked about. We're already creating dynamic AI agents for a lot of our clients, and now we are use it for performance, for predicting models and simulations as well. And I think that's where the power of this would come through. Taking care of time. So now I really want to focus on, following that future back strategy. If we really want to, since we are right now in 4.0 and we want to move towards 5.0, what is it that we really need in 5.0 to build in 4.0, so that we can really make a difference and build those human first cities? From my perspective, I think the industry 5.0 is about where man and machine reconcile, and that's where Sarath, you're already working on it, and where we are seeing the benefits of robotics. How it's really helping in terms of health and safety, where accessibility has improved, where you want to send people and get things done where people are generally difficult to go, or you need the situational awareness is not that much. I think from my perspective, these are the kind of building blocks which really need to be in place. Digital twins, we're already working towards it, but that's digital twin 5.0 is on steroids in terms of modeling, simulations, and making sure that we are actually making much more accurate predictions. You need intelligent autonomous system. We're already doing that for one of our clients, where we are trying to make a water treatment plant really autonomous, a living asset, where it can actually self-treat based on the water quality. If water quality goes bad, it can actually respond back and can improve with time. That's the kind of autonomous assets and living assets we are trying to build. Then we need a top-down approach. you can't get data from telcos. It's too expensive. What kind of policy framework and governance and management do we really need to make sure that we can actually have all those things in place, which needs to happen in 4.0, so that we can actually take the benefit of all the emerging technologies in 5.0. Cogmax, this is a term that I've coined. I am really big fan of cognitive machines, because I think that is really going to help us build efficient cities and take the benefit of it. Now, jumping on to probably 6.0, we don't know what the future is like but I'm a person who lives in future and believes, probably the future 6.0 would be a dynamic world where we would probably manage natural resources like never before. We can't build the building blocks right now because we don't know what the future is going to look like, what kind of imaging technologies we're going to have. But what we can really have is principles in place so that we are actually better prepared to navigate that uncertain future. I think from principle one perspective, we'll be living in harmony with nature. We'll have much more control. We'll be much more creative and closer to the environment, so that we'll be caring for the environment more as well, so that we can actually avoid these disruptions. Technology will not be a thing, but will be a way of life. As we breathe air, I think technology will just help us living in that dynamic environment. And we'll be mastering the economics of learning. As a human being, we go through that S-curve, go through the changes, learn, and somehow we just plateau. And I think we've got to learn to live in this exponential age where we will have to work with the learning and make sure that we actually can live in that space. So that's from me, really. I hope I've stuck to the time. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you. Yes, you did so well to stick to the time. So that kind of brings us to our next facilitated discussion. So we're going to open up the floor again for some green time for our participants to ask Sarath and Rekha some questions.
Yeah. Maybe I just want to give a comment to both our speakers.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for those presentations. And I think it flows very nicely with what we have on IoT and application in Christchurch, but we're looking at the future. I think with Rekha's presentation, we have a futurist perspective, which is really a challenging, but also really exciting field. And at the same time, with Sarath's work, we can see how robots are already now really helping us, making our cities more resilient. And that's, I think, really exciting space. So thank you for sharing your work and for throwing in those ideas and questions. So,
yeah, I definitely think
so
it is a very challenging thing to encourage our communities to imagine the future. I think our present day is changing so fast that it's difficult to think what 10 years, 20 years, 30 years is going to look like. So yeah. So any questions from our participants?
I have a question.
Yes, go for it, Jeff.
So it seems like the tech is moving quite nicely and it's solving problems as we go. And in terms of the software and the processing, it seems like that's also progressing well. But one of the things that may not be progressing as fast as certainly the tech is the regulatory framework that we live in. And that usually takes a lot more time, a lot more convincing, and it certainly came out in Catherine's discussion. So I'm kind of wondering who and where this kind of group sees the kind of lobbying for open data and ways in which we can incorporate data to improve our resilience in this kind of smarter new world. So who's kind of doing that, and how can we, if no one's doing it, how can we actually get to do that? Because I think we all agree that smart cities is an amazing thing, but we need to sort of get the policy makers on the same page.
Can I respond to that?
Yes.
It's a fantastic question. And so in what we see, and we being the industry, we see that there's got to be a three-prong approach. People talk about bottom-up or top-down, and we've got to meet in the middle. So what we've been doing with the Internet of Things Alliance with Australia, we have set up a work stream. It's been very fantastic, actually. It's been around platforms and interoperability, and we also have another work stream around data and data sharing. And what that's done is, because we're trying to connect the supply side with the demand side, so supply side being the industry, demand side being government and the users and the consumers, I suppose, of the technology. We've worked really hard on setting up a framework based on principles to with a foundation around, you know, encouraging open standards and interoperability. Now what we're seeing is that in tenders that are coming out by cities to market, they're actually using the same language. They're saying that the technology must be able to talk to each other, you know, and so we have this capability now with things such as APIs and interfaces to be able to do that. So that's one part, but we're still a long way off, you know, getting nirvana, but at least it's a start. I actually just posted in the chat that we've, as my own organisation, we've actually got a thing called an MOU. It's a document which can be a contract or some sort of agreement, which enables different parties to be able to participate in a smart cities IoT project, where, for example, one party might want to host sensors or purchase sensors or contribute towards funding sensors in exchange for data sharing around the data that's generated from the solution. And of course, this is all done using best practice through ensuring that, you know, privacy and all of that is protected. But that's a fantastic question. And I think that we're not there yet. I think we're all in this sort of still this discovery phase. But one thing also that we do have a big challenge is the legislation. So the GDPR and the legislation pertaining to the use of technology and the use of data is actually very complex. And I think what's happened is that in the quest to protect people's privacy, understandably, we now have a situation where it's really difficult for cities to participate in these programs because you know, they're very concerned about any potential, you know, backlash or unhidden influence that might come out of the use of technology. So still a lot more work to do, but I think that, you know, there are some great tools out there that we can use and encourage everybody to have this conversation.
Thank you.
And just to note that Sean has also put a comment in the chat box as well. I don't know, Sean, if you wanted to take a moment to elaborate on any of your points there. We will be hearing from you next, I guess, but feel free to jump in now.
Yeah, the policy environment in this space is a lot more dynamic than most people realise. So there's a new public service bill that will get the Royal Assent this week. It's already passed Parliament. That embeds open government as a core part of the public service. It also changes the way the public service acts. So it's not nirvana, but it is a step in the right direction. The other piece is you've got the publishing of the algorithm charter. The new open government plans are being drafted now. And you've got a bit more leadership coming from places like NZTA with not only the development of data and interoperability standards, but also implementation models being developed in partnership with councils to make it happen. And then most of the cities get together at least quarterly anyway on this stuff. So we've very much got to strike a balance between talking about it and being nice to each other and having enough time to actually do it as well.
Thank you. Do you have any, we have a few more minutes, like do we have any questions for Sarath or Rekha on their presentations? Anyone?
I have lots of questions about the robotics side, but I won't geek out on this too much. But it seems amazing that you can operate these sensors in such difficult environments. Are you exploring even more difficult environments, like in the middle of a volcanic vent or something like that? That obviously this would be perfect for.
Yeah. The next challenge that I took on board is the what we call the ocean outfalls. So so that is next step to what we have been doing. So in that run, the difficulty is that once the sewer, is treated, once it is properly treated, it is normally pumped into the ocean through underground tunnels. And that tunnels, normally still it's not clear water. It has things in it, but it is well treated. So the difficulty over there is that that whatever the device that we are building need to have over maybe 150 meters of water head. It need to deal with that, and also all the turbulence and which can occur within that. And also, you can't have systems which fails because it can block the whole system. So at the moment, there is a discussion, and we started a project with City Water in relation to that. That is the next big challenge. If we don't do very good, we will be in media. If we do very good, very well, we will be in media as well. Because if you don't do good, it's going to stuck somewhere. And because one of the main problems there is that we can't stop that, or the Sydney Water can only manage the flow to a certain level. There is no bypass system. So if you block it, definitely in media. So so that's the next one. And so we have other projects my colleagues doing for helping Antarctica exploration and so on, where you basically drill a little hole on ice and then deploy this robot which can basically dive in the water when it goes down, and then look at getting all the sensory data that are required by our science faculty to investigate the species and all sort of things. So that is another bit tough task, but yeah, at the moment happening.
Thank you. Really interesting work. And thanks for sharing those links. I'm sure everyone will be quite interested to see the work that you're doing. So if anyone wants to see those, Sarath has already shared on our chat box. But we'll also send this through when we send out I guess, consolidation of what has happened today. I guess we have one more question. And if no one has a question, then I'll throw a question to Rekha. But I'll give opportunity for people to ask. No? Okay. All right. Rekha, that's a really interesting presentation. And what I really like about it is the future's perspective. But just a little bit curious on 6.0, Future 6.0. Do you think this is like within 20, 30 years time? And what's kind of our time frame to get there?
I'm a techno optimist, so probably I would say in next 10 years or 15 years, not more than that. I think that's where I see. I mean, we are growing exponential already, and if you see, probably in last decade, our life has changed so much, and those decades are going to compressed into, I think, 5 years, and then even probably 3 years from now. And I think that's the kind of exponential change that we are going to see. But we won't be able to take advantage of those technologies unless we've got a plan in place and we actually adopt a future back strategy. So that's the point I want to make. Even with 4.0, there's a lot more available, like blockchain and other things, which are moving on to another generation, but we have not even started exploring or taking advantage of those technologies yet. There's so much more to do.
I wonder if we'll ever get out of the discovery phase that Catherine was talking about earlier.
Yeah, and I think
there's always more to discover. That's the problem.
Yeah, but I think we all have to be more human. We'll have to be more sharing with each other. We've got to be more trusting, and I think that's where we exponentially grow. If we all try to just look after our piece of pie, then I don't think we will be able to make that leap. We've got to give each other the space and trust, and once we build that trust, I think we will actually take that leap forward and exponentially grow. It's about creating that trusted environment. That's really important.
I really liked your principle one, Rekha, around the connectivity with the environment as well. I thought that was a really nice point to make. It's not something that's very front of mind when we're talking about technology.
Yeah, because I mean, I can't come from banking. I love infrastructure space because I think I'm making a difference, and I think that's what drives me. That's the kind of satisfaction, and we'll have much more satisfaction. We'll be much more human because we live in harmony with the environment. We'll have much more time for creativity to actually think about environment. Right now, we've got so much of things to worry about, commuting, congestion, and the basic things, which I think, and once we are past that, probably we'll think more about environment, climate, green, and probably my daughters will live in a different world. I hope so, in much more closer to nature than I am.
Thanks. Thanks again, Sarath and Rekha, for your time, for sharing the work and ideas. So we'll move on to our next set of speakers.
Yeah.